Sophie Cunningham, known for being the WNBA's high-energy, hot-tempered, elbows always loaded enforcer, just flipped the script in the softest, most human, most vulnerable way imaginable. She's pregnant, and the first person she told? Not a teammate, not her coach, not even her agent. It was Caitlin Clark. Yes, that Caitlin Clark. The rookie phenom, the merch queen, the new face of the league, the one who's been shoved into every spotlight possible since the moment she stepped on a pro court. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Turns out, behind all the brand deals and triple-doubles, there's a real friendship brewing between these two, one that has nothing to do with contracts, court time, or chaos, and everything to do with trust. And when Cunningham pulled Caitlin aside and dropped that bombshell, "I'm going to be a mom," it wasn't just emotional. It was historic, because this wasn't just some personal life update tucked away behind closed doors. This was a seismic moment, one that reminded everyone watching, these women are people, not just players, not just storylines. People. Let's be honest. Sophie Cunningham isn't exactly who you'd expect to lead this kind of narrative. She came into the league with a reputation, aggressive, outspoken, fearless. The kind of player who talks trash with a smile, draws fouls like it's her love language, and isn't afraid to take a technical if it means standing up for her squad. But underneath that toughness, there's always been something raw, real, someone who feels deeply, someone who cares. And in this moment, this incredibly private, incredibly brave moment, Sophie let that side show in the most unexpected way. She let her guard down, to Caitlin, and in doing so, she let all of us in, too. Now, imagine you're Caitlin Clark for a second. You've just been handed the league spotlight. Your life is a whirlwind of travel, practices, media duties, and press requests. You barely have time to breathe, let alone form real relationships in a league where everything moves 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then Sophie, this bold, strong, no-nonsense veteran, comes to you with something so deeply personal, so intimate, that you don't even know what to say at first. Because how do you respond when someone tells you they're growing a life while playing professional basketball? This wasn't just a moment between friends. It was a passing of something deeper, a recognition, an invitation into a part of life that transcends rivalry or teammate dynamics. It was woman to woman, human to human. And Caitlin? She was floored. Sources say she was emotional, shocked, grateful, honored. The kind of reaction that wasn't about headlines or cameras. It was about connection. And that connection, between two players who technically aren't even on the same team, that's what makes this moment so powerful. Because it proves that behind the competitive fire, behind the Nike logos and post-game interviews, behind the social media storms and sold-out arenas, these women are living, not just surviving the season, but building lives, making choices, navigating love, fear, change. And Sophie's choice to share her pregnancy with Caitlin first, that speaks volumes. Not just about their friendship, but about who Cunningham really is, someone who's learning to balance being strong and soft, who's finally letting the world see that she's more than a jersey number and a highlight reel of defensive chaos. Now, let's talk about what this moment means, because it's bigger than just two people. Sophie's announcement cracked open a whole new dimension of what it means to be a woman in sports today. Because for decades, female athletes were told, explicitly and implicitly, that motherhood was the end of the road. That pregnancy was a retirement announcement in disguise. But Sophie, she's not walking away. She's walking into a new kind of power. She's still here, still a part of the team, still force. And now, she's adding mom to her resume. It's bold, it's disruptive, and it's exactly the kind of narrative the WNBA needs right now. Because being an athlete and a mother, that's not a contradiction anymore. It's a revolution. And Sophie's leading it. The fan response? Instant, emotional, explosive. Social media lit up with congratulations. Fellow players posted hearts and tear emojis. And, yes, mama comments. But more than that, fans share their own stories. Women who had kids while working full-time. moms who brought babies to games, athletes who thought their careers were over after motherhood and suddenly felt seen. Sophie's vulnerability unlocked something. She reminded people that strength isn't just measured in rebounds and scoring percentages. Sometimes, it's about showing up while your body is changing, while your future is uncertain, while you're navigating hormones and hope and fear all at once, and still showing up for your team. And Caitlin Clark being the first to hear the news? That wasn't just a plot twist. That was a symbol, a bridge between generations, between the new face of the league and the players who built the league she's stepping into. It showed that connection in the WNBA runs deep, that this isn't some cutthroat, every woman for herself environment. It's a community where you can tell your competitor you're pregnant and know you'll be met with love, not side eyes. A league where your personal milestones don't get pushed aside for the sake of team optics. Where motherhood isn't a setback, it's a badge of honor. Let that sink in. In a sports world that often sidelines women the second they start to show emotion, or, God forbid, show a baby bump, Sophie Cunningham just flipped the narrative. And Caitlin Clark? She stood right beside her and said, "This matters." So where do we go from here? We celebrate, we reflect, and we push. We push for better support from mothers in the league. We push for more visibility for the players who don't always get the headlines. We push for the space to be athletes and parents, stars and humans. Because Sophie's story isn't just a heartwarming one-off. It's a glimpse into the future of women's sports. A future where athletes don't have to hide their pregnancies. A future where "I'm going to be a mom" isn't a whispered confession, but a victory lap. A future where players can be fierce and feminine, aggressive and affectionate, ruthless on the court and tender off it. So here's to Sophie Cunningham for being fearless in a whole new way. And here's to Caitlin Clark for showing us that true strength isn't just about sinking threes or breaking records. Sometimes it's about listening, supporting, being present for someone else's moment when the cameras aren't even rolling. This was more than an announcement. It was a reminder that behind every buzzer beater, behind every stat line, behind every SportsCenter clip, there's a person, a daughter, a friend, a future mom. And that's the real story. So what do you think? Were you just as surprised by Sophie's announcement? Did it change how you see her? What does it say about how far women's sports has come and how far we still have to go? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is the one that matters. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories from the court and everything that happens beyond it. Because if this league has proven anything, it doesn't show the tremble in Sophie's voice when she whispered to Caitlin Clark, "I'm pregnant." It doesn't capture the beat of silence that followed, the look in Caitlin's eyes, half shock, half awe, as she processed the weight of that moment. No stat sheet tracks what it means to trust someone with that kind of news. No highlight reel will ever include what came next. Caitlin reaching out, pulling Sophie into a quiet hug, and simply saying, "I've got you." No cameras, no headlines, just two women, sitting in the eye of the storm that is professional sports, choosing honesty over PR, choosing connection over competition. That's what makes this moment so unforgettable. Because when you think of Sophie Cunningham, you don't think soft. You think fire. You think edge. You think that one player who's always in the middle of the chaos, shouting at refs, banging bodies in the paint, never backing down from a confrontation. She's the type who will snatch a loose ball, hit a three, and smirk at your bench like she owns the lease on the arena. But now, we see something else. We see vulnerability. We see change. We see the fear and excitement of a woman stepping into the unknown, of someone whose entire life has revolved around sports, now making room for life, literally growing inside her. And the fact that Sophie chose Caitlin to share that with first, it says a lot about the kind of person Caitlin is when the microphones are off. For all the fame, all the pressure, all the lights pointed at her 24/7, Caitlin Clark is still available, present, someone you can confide in, and that matters, because it's easy to connect when you're winning. It's easy to high-five and be all smiles after a big W. But what about when someone drops news that's going to change everything? What about when that news has nothing to do with basketball? That's when you find out who's real, who listens, who shows up. And Caitlin? She showed up. Let's not forget, Sophie didn't owe anyone this announcement. She could have kept it quiet, slipped away mid-season, released a short post with a baby emoji and a vague caption like, "New adventure loading," but she didn't. She shared it, not for clout, not for sympathy, but because she believed, maybe for first time in a long time, that she didn't have to hide it, that she could be a professional athlete and a future mom at the same time without apology. And that belief, that confidence, it came, in part, from this new era the WNBA is stepping into, where athletes are whole people, not filter personas, where showing your full self doesn't cost you your credibility. It adds to it. For so long, sports asked women to pick a lane, be the strong one, be the role model, be the one of the boys. But don't be too emotional. Don't show too much real life. Definitely don't get pregnant, unless it's retirement time. But now, thanks to players like Sophie, because of moments like this, we're watching the walls come down. We're watching the league grow up, because motherhood in sports used to be an asterisk. Now, it's becoming a badge of honor. You think Serena didn't shift the entire landscape when she played a Grand Slam final while still breastfeeding? You think Allison Felix didn't move mountains when she fought for maternity protections in her Nike contract? And now, Sophie Cunningham joins that lineage, not because she's trying to be iconic, but because she's choosing to be honest. And Clark, standing beside her, is choosing to amplify that honesty. No petty tweets. No awkward, let's pretend this didn't happen energy. Just support. Quiet, steady support. And that's what's so refreshing about this moment. It's unbranded. It's not about merch or a campaign. It's not a rollout. It's real life. And that realness, it matters. Especially now. Because if you've been watching the WNBA lately, you know it's not just about basketball anymore. It's about storytelling. It's about building stars, building bridges, building a culture. And what we just saw between Sophie and Caitlin, that's the culture shift in motion. Gone are the days where women in sports had to act like robots to be taken seriously. These women are showing up as their full selves, and they're not asking for permission anymore. You want motherhood? Here it is. You want friendship across teams? Here it is. You want vulnerability that isn't spun into a brand campaign? Yeah, here it is. And the ripple effect? Massive. Fans who've never been pregnant in their lives are moved. People who followed Cunningham for years, who've admired her grit and toughness, now see her in a totally new light. She's still strong, even stronger somehow, but now she's also relatable in a way that hits different. Because being tough on the court is one thing. Being tough enough to share your truth in a world that doesn't always know how to hold it, that's legendary. And Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's golden child, just proved she's not all hype. She's got heart. She's got depth. It's one thing to lead in scoring. It's another to be the kind of teammate, the kind of person that someone feels safe enough to say, "Hey, I'm bringing a baby into the world, and I want you to know first." Let that sink in, because this league is watching. The media is watching. Other players are watching. And maybe, just maybe, this moment gives someone else the courage to open up, to be vulnerable, to share what they're going through on and off the court. That's the power of what Sophie just did. She didn't just make a personal announcement. She made space. And Caitlin, she held it. No judgments. No deflections. No fake smiles. Just support. Like genuine support. Which, let's be real, is rare in any high-stakes profession. Let alone one where women are constantly pit against each other. Constantly asked to compete for attention, contracts, and legacy. But this right here, this was about togetherness. This was about women holding each other down instead of tearing each other apart. So yeah, it wasn't a buzzer beater. It wasn't a game-winning block. But it might have been one of the most important moments of the season, because it reminded us that these athletes aren't machines. They're daughters, friends, sisters, partners, mothers. They're people, living full, messy, beautiful lives outside the 94 feet of hardwood we see on TV. And that's the kind of story that stays with you. So shout out to Sophie Cunningham for showing us that strength has layers. And shout out to Caitlin Clark for proving that even the most watched rookie in the game knows when to stop talking and start listening. Now let's open it up, because this moment, this beautifully messy, deeply human reveal from Sophie Cunningham to Caitlin Clark, it hit harder than a full-court buzzer beater. Not because it changed the playoff picture or because it shook up someone's MVP campaign, but because it reminded us that, for once, the biggest story in women's basketball isn't about stats. It's about soul. Let's talk about what no one wants to say out loud. We live in a culture, especially in sports, where women are constantly expected to perform emotional acrobatics. Be strong, but not too aggressive. Be emotional, but not too sensitive. Be focused on your career, but don't forget your biological clock. Be everything. Be everything. And do it all without missing a step on the court. So when Sophie Cunningham, this absolute grit incarnate, sat down with Caitlin Clark and shared the kind of news that flips your whole world upside down, she shattered that mold. She said, "I'm going to be a mother." And she said it not in a press release, not through a sports reporter with an exclusive angle, but in a quiet conversation with someone she trusted. Someone new, someone younger, someone who technically isn't even on her team, yet somehow is, because this league is different. In the NBA, this would have been a storyline built for drama. Forced rivalries, dramatic showdowns, tabloid-style think pieces about who's getting more shine. But in the WNBA, you get two players who are supposed to be competitors, acting like sisters. That's the story no one's writing. The fact that Sophie didn't know Caitlin that vulnerability, and Caitlin didn't know Sophie that compassion, but both gave it freely. And that's the kind of connection that can't be manufactured by sponsorships or PR handlers. That's real. That's legacy. And it matters so much more than we realize. Because you have to understand, this wasn't just a baby announcement. It was a signal to every girl watching, every aspiring baller, every fan who's ever wondered what happens when life collides with career. It was proof that you don't have to choose. You can have both. You can chase your dreams and start a family. You can talk trash on the court and still cry in the locker room because the ultrasound you just had yesterday made it all feel so real. And you can be seen not just as an athlete, not just as a stat line, but as a whole damn person. Sophie Cunningham just became a blueprint, not just for balancing basketball and motherhood, but for showing up fully as a woman, as a friend, as a future mom. And Caitlin, she could have made that moment awkward. She could have given a rehearsed response. She could have made it about her. But she didn't. She listened. She sat with a moment. She let Sophie have it. And in doing that, Caitlin Clark, this rookie who everyone's already comparing to legends, did something way more powerful than draining a logo three. She made space for someone else's milestone. That's bigger than basketball. That's leadership. And sure, you can't measure in rebounds or assists. But trust, this is what separates stars from legends. Because when this moment broke, the lead felt it. You could feel the shift in tone, the energy online, the way players rallied around Sophie like a squad of Annies ready to defend her from any nonsense. It was beautiful. It was communal. And that's the secret of the WNBA that people outside the fandom still don't get. This league runs on community. It's not just games and highlights. It's sisterhood. It's shared joy. It's watching each other grow, not just as athletes, but as women. And now, Sophie's story becomes part of that larger WNBA lore. We'll remember it alongside all the iconic moments. Not because it happened under arena lights, but because it transcended them. And let's talk about what this does to the narrative around women's sports more broadly. Because for too long, the conversation has been stuck in the same boring loop. Can women have it all? Is pregnancy the end of an athletic career? How do we accommodate motherhood in pro sports? Guess what? Sophie Cunningham just answered all of it. Not with a lecture, not with a campaign, just with her life. And if you're watching closely, you realize this moment is going to change the game, literally and figuratively. It's going to open the door for other athletes who are thinking about starting families, who've been scared that doing so might jeopardize their contracts or playing time or fan respect. Sophie just cracked that door open. And Caitlin Clark? She stood beside it and held it open wider. So what happens now? The league shifts. The stories deepen. The fans, especially the younger ones, start to see a version of womanhood in sports that isn't flattened or sanitized. They see that you can show up, drop buckets, build a family, and still be the fiercest one on the court. They see that milestones like these belong in sports narratives. That maternity isn't a footnote. It's not a life happens side chapter. It's part of the legacy. It is the story. And just imagine what that means to the next generation. The girl who's 14 right now, hooping in her driveway, dreaming of playing the WNBA one day, but also dreaming of being a mom. The message she's always heard is, pick one, not anymore. Sophie Cunningham just showed her that you don't have to split yourself in two. You can be both. You can be all of it. And you can be great at all of it. And Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation, just backed that message with action, with grace, with presence. So yeah, this story might not dominate the sports pages. It might not lead SportsCenter, but it should. Because this is the good stuff. The real stuff. The moments that define what kind of league the WNBA is. What kind of world we're building inside of women's sports. A world where you can lace up sneakers and shop for cribs. Where you can run pick and rolls and navigate prenatal appointments. Where being a mom isn't a disqualifier, it's a badge. So here's to Sophie Cunningham for being bold in a whole new way. And here's to Caitlin Clark for being exactly the kind of teammate, friend, and woman this moment needed. They didn't just surprise each other. They surprised all of us. And if this is what the future of the WNBA looks like, full of heart, honesty, and humanity, then trust me, we're all in for one hell of a season. Now it's your turn. What did you feel when you heard Sophie's news? Did it inspire you? Challenge you? Change how you see her, or how you see Caitlin? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is bigger than basketball. And if you want more stories like this, more real, raw, revolutionary moments from the world of women's sports, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.